Well, hey everybody, it's Chuck. Welcome to the Cybertruck. So I am headed up I-95 at the moment, and we got some severe weather coming up ahead. So I figured I'd get the camera rolling, talk a little bit about what's been going on this week with the Cybertruck, and also perhaps show you this big old windshield wiper in action a little bit, and maybe actually get some severe weather and talk a little bit about how the car's driving and some things I've realized owning it highway miles wise. First of all, I still absolutely love this truck. I was down at work in Orlando this week, and maybe I'll show you a picture in the parking lot right here of a Rivian, a Ford Lightning, and the Cybertruck all next to each other at our charging spots at work. And what a great picture to see, 3 EV trucks side by side. All great cars, no matter what your preferences are. Of course, I prefer this one, the Cybertruck. But I think the more I drive it, the more I am missing FSD. And especially now that FSD supervised or supervised FSD is up to version 12.3.3 and the amazing driving that it is able to perform on my Model Y. But on the highway, and mostly in the highways where you use it, having traffic aware cruise control on is, I want to say, 65% of the stress relief of having the car maintaining distance and speed, perhaps not getting into a rapid tailgate scenario. If there were an accident up ahead, the truck would react very, very quickly. It does feel like old school version 9 or 10, though, version 11 on the highway, though. The old autopilot stack is what this feels like. I'll turn it off. You just press this button right here, and you see traffic aware cruise control turned off. So now I'm driving with the accelerator. And to turn it on, you just press in on the scroll wheel, and you get the number here with the blue max indicating it's on. I can scroll up and down to kind of get the speeds I want. A rapid scroll goes in 5-mile-an-hour increments, and a slow scroll kind of goes in single mile-an-hour increments. It does a good job, but it does feel very, I don't want to say radar-esque, because I don't even think we have a radar confirmed on the front of the Cybertruck. I believe we have an interior radar, but I don't think we have one on the front. So I'm guessing this is all being done with vision. But it does have the distance, but for, see down here, thinking about it, there's 2 car distances, 3, 4, 5. So if you remember back on pre-version 11, the autopilot stack, we had this car distance setting that was using radar at the time, I believe. And then we transitioned over. Anyway, I use it on the highway. I like it. I will say my driving adjustment has had to change because the comfort of long driving, where you set your arm on the armrest, setting it over here on the side is a little far over to kind of rest your elbow to hold it. I found I'm kind of putting my knees up high, and I can hold the bottom edge of the squircle with my knee in my hand. I know you're not supposed to kind of drive with your hand on the top of the steering wheel like this as much because of the airbag, and if it did deploy, how your arm would be in the way. So the 10 in the 2 position is of course optimal, but in kind of a relaxed, kind of holding it state down low on my knee and maybe the elbow and the armrest is kind of where I've ended up. I can even see the traffic and the rain's getting ready to come here, so I'm going to let you see how the traffic aware cruise control is going to modify its speed here in the center lane for what looks like we're getting into some heavy rain here. A few other people have mentioned this, but just kind of a comment and difference in driving in a Tesla coming from FSD over to traffic aware cruise control only. Some of the things you kind of got used to being able to do, perhaps pouring a cup of coffee quickly from a thermos, you can kind of let go of the steering wheel for a few seconds and even keeping your eyes straight ahead and do that safely. I know if you were to eat while you were driving, that same sort of scenario would be much trickier. In old traditional cars, and I say old traditional, meaning maybe even not a Tesla, or how about let's just say with a round steering wheel, I remember learning a technique where you could kind of take your hands off a steering wheel for a few seconds by holding the steering wheel with your knee. This is not a safe maneuver, but I will say that technique does not work very well with the Squircle because your knee on the edge of the Squircle gives it a lifting moment, whereas a round wheel, you can kind of hold it and lock it in place. it doesn't quite work the same with this steering wheel, and I did notice that a little bit too, just a little bit of a driving difference. The drive-by-wire, though, on the highway mode, because I think the computer is adjusting the amount of wheel turning, you really move the wheel very, very little. So you're essentially finger driving. And ironically, you know, as a pilot of the Airbus aircraft, we actually have a control stick on the captain's side over on the left, and you truly do fly the airplane with small finger movements. You don't really fly it like a joystick, like you might think a video game. It's very, very small inputs. This is the same thing driving at highway speeds. Very small inputs, so resting it on your knee and just kind of controlling it with your fingers is completely adequate. Even changing lanes. I am finding that the blinkers and the blinker locations and getting used to the rear view camera here is definitely an adjustment. I still mechanically am looking at the side view mirrors instead of the cameras, but I do want to continually adjust my flow. If you notice outside, we're getting into what I would start to call some moderate rain. I still have visibility of about a quarter mile, but it's getting low very, very quickly. And the windshield wipers are on auto, so I did not set them or turn them on. And you can see the auto windshield wipers are working pretty good here. And this speed distance here behind this truck is slowed all the way down to 50 miles an hour at a safe distance for the speed. I'm starting to lose visibility of the lines a little bit in all the spray from the trucks, but the visualization is still doing a pretty good job here, keeping the lines mapped. I'm going to go ahead and accelerate a little bit around this truck if I can. There's a little bit of traffic stacking up behind me. I'm going to go ahead and change lanes. So there's the blinker, and you see how the car was in red and it had an indication of red on the camera. Something I did never ever pick up in the videos I watched before I owned the truck. In these speakers up here on the A-pillar, there's a tiny little red LED that is also illuminated when there's a car in your blind spot. So the same time this camera is red, that there's an LED in the respective speaker on the left or on the right to see if, you know, as another indicator of a blind spot, a car in your blind spot. So I think that's also handy. It's a little bit more attention grabbing, especially if you're looking at the mirror and not the camera. So like I'm gonna go ahead and turn and get over here in this center lane. Yeah, the windshield wiper is working. I wouldn't call that very fast. I'd call that probably what a medium mode, not a high mode. But I don't have any visibility concerns on the windshield. The angle of this windshield in this heavy rain is doing, I think, most of the work. Almost like having Rain-X on a regular windshield. It's just rolling right off. I think I'm gonna see if I go ahead and turn off the windshield wipers here. I'm gonna go ahead and use the button and go to off, just to kind of show you a little demo. So the windshield wiper parked up here in the left column, but you can see, much like an airplane doesn't really need windshield wipers, this windshield almost doesn't need windshield wipers because of its angle to the airflow and the way they blow off. It is obviously a little bit degraded, but it's not like a regular car. I'm going to go ahead and turn them back on just for the purposes of being extra safe as the wind gets a little bit more picked up here. And I'm going to make sure they're in auto there. Yeah, I think this is a good demo. This is the heaviest rain I've driven in, and this is where I used to really lean on auto steer for lane control, because auto steer would stay on much longer than FSD version 11 and then version 12 would stay on. You could go down to degraded mode and really just lock in the lanes, and it did a good job. So I kind of do really miss having a little bit of lane keep. I did put out another post on X today kind of asking that question, you know, to try to figure out when we might see some basic autopilot functionality and then hopefully eventual full self-driving. I imagine that autopilot should be fairly straightforward to implement. I do think FSD version 12 might be a a data collection, problem with so few vehicles on the road. The data set and the training set might need to be accumulated with a little bit more time. But anyway, I think there's going to be some heavier rain ahead, but that's just kind of a quick update. I guess we could talk about the rear view camera real quick before we sign out. You can start to see these droplets are still hanging on the camera there, even going 75 miles an hour. So the wind stream isn't keeping it perfectly clean all the time. Now, look, it did look like it cleaned itself there after a few seconds, but the water droplets do kind of hang out in the heavy rain. If I do a blinker, you can see the repeaters are very, very clear. So the angle of incidence of the wind stream and that fender flare protecting that repeater camera are doing a good job. Just that rear camera kind of in the back. Let me see what the front camera looks like for you there. So there's the front camera while you're driving. It's right in the wind stream, and you can see it is collecting a little bit of droplets, but the front camera is the first Tesla camera that has a little washer on it, and it does use actual washer fluid, the same washer fluid that the windshield wiper uses, and all you got to do to clean it is press that little button. And if you saw the blue juice from the windshield wiper fluid go down across that camera there, that's how that works. It's a great little feature. Obviously that camera is very, very low, and I'm sure would be very susceptible to getting dirty, as is the tailgate camera. Even though it's higher, the way wind and the wind stream kind of collects behind the car, dust and wet dust and mud will cover up that camera quite a bit. I think Chris, Dirty Tesla, up in Michigan, who lives on a dirt road, has got some good demonstration of how that camera is just not staying clean on his Cybertruck. There's also, so I use this camera button to push it up. I'm trying to get my muscle memory to use the button right here on the right side that will bring those up just by pressing the button while you're driving. Well, actually here I'm pressing it while there it goes. Well, actually while you're driving, it doesn't bring up the camera. So while I'm driving, it turns my rear view camera on or off. But to get all the cameras up, I do have to push this button down here, and it defaults to the rear view. And I can swipe. I thought it was swipe. Yeah, you can swipe to bring up the front view, and then this button controls it again. So it looks like there's a little bit of a while you're driving functionality. I know while I'm parking, I can use this steering wheel button to bring up the parking camera. So I guess it has some speed logic in there. Yeah, I definitely am higher up also in the Cybertruck than I'm used to in my Model Y. And it seems like the spray that I normally would get from cars and vehicles is a little bit different. Maybe it's also the windscreen that's making a big difference there too. Anyway, I think that's all I got for you today. I'll just make this a quick update. I might leave the camera rolling for a little bit. If the weather gets any more severe, maybe I'll just start it and give you some highlight clips. All right, I'm back with you just for a second here. The rain has gotten much, much heavier, and I do want to show you that in this version, autopilot speed is limited due to poor visibility. So even traffic aware cruise control has got a limit in there that it's using based off of forward visibility. It does not seem to change the max, so I can't quite tell what speed limit it's limiting itself to. And you see the warning just went away there. So there is still a little bit of a, now it's speeding back up to my max speed of 70 here, even though the visibility to me feels about the same. But my visibility has dropped down to what I would say is about 1/8 of a mile, and traffic is starting to put on their blinkers and slow kind of to the 45 to 50 mile an hour range. The lines are still pretty well represented here, and now there's that warning again, limited due to poor visibility, and it's still kind of keeping distance on this car in front of me. So I don't know, maybe it's slowing it down to around 50 or something like that. There's quite a bit of standing water, and this is Interstate 95. And any of you that live in Florida, this road is normally 85 plus in the left lane anyway. I'm trying to see exactly what speed it's using. It looks like it might be 51, 52 miles an hour it's limited to, even though it does say 70 max there. This big old windshield wiper is doing the best job it can, but in this kind of rain, this is all I would expect. But that might be the maximum speed this wiper can do. I don't know if I turn the wiper on, if I go to high. Yeah, so now I've turned it on to high instead of auto, and that's as fast as it goes. So unlike a smaller set of wipers with smaller motors that go back and forth very quickly, this looks like it's the highest speed possible. Let me just go through these speeds here. So if that's high, there's 3. Yep, it slowed down a little bit. There's 2. 2 looks like it might be intermittent almost, or slow intermittent. And there's 1. And 1 is definitely an intermittent. And then back to auto. So that's a pretty good demonstration of how fast that big moment arm is moving. Yeah, and it slowed down significantly there to 30 something. Almost a little too slow there for this traffic. I need to make sure I'm maintaining traffic flow so cars behind me, don't rear end me, even though the entire interstate slowed down for this rain. Yeah, sticking with about 1/8 of a mile visibility here. It's pretty heavy. This is the kind of rain where many people pull off to the side of the roads. You can see everybody using their hazards. I have not turned my hazards on yet, but if the hazard button is up here, I can turn that on just as a clue. And you see on the screen here, I've got the hazards displayed. It's flashing red up here at the hazard button. And interestingly, I don't have my rear view camera at the moment. With the hazards on, I'm gonna go ahead and change lanes over here. If I turn the hazards off, I get my rear view again. If I turn the hazards back on, my rear view goes away. So for some reason, hazard lights take off my rear camera visibility, and with the tonneau closed, I can't see backwards. So I would call that a bug, actually. I don't think I like that. And if I turn them on, I can pull this camera up to see, but I can't get the belt of the rear view camera to show up at all. So just right there is the best I can do with the hazards on. That's interesting. Why do you guys think the hazard light would turn off the rear camera display? Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Hopefully this little clip helped also. Have a great day, everybody.